Hey there and good afternoon. Gosh, we have a little bit of rain here, but I guess that's pretty normal for March. Let me just share my screen here. There we go. Well, welcome everybody. I really appreciate you guys joining me. You know, as job seekers, we get told so many messages, must apply online. That one we see everywhere. Must send Word document. We'll talk about that. Must send compensation requirements. We're certainly going to talk about that. My advice to you is same advice as the subtitle of my book. Subtitle of my book is Changing the Rules. If that rule works for you, fantastic. I love that rule. That's phenomenal. If that rule is somehow blocking you, you know what? That's meant for somebody else. You have to let that go by. Step over the fence around whatever the obstacle is. That's what this lecture is about. If you would like to work within the HR department, well, guess what? HR is the right department for you to contact. In fact, they know your specialty. They understand what you bring to the table, and they're your decision maker. If you'd like to work in another department that is not the HR department, I would advise you to maybe not send that resume into the HR department. Oh, I know that's all the messaging, click send, must apply. Why don't you just begin the process with a conversation with the decision maker? Notice I use the word conversation, but you know what a conversation is, an interview. You don't need it to be called an interview. What you need to do is have the conversation. And if you're getting screened out at the HR level, it's simply because they started with this kind of ridiculous fill in the blank form. We need to hire, fill in the blank. I love fill in the blank. And they wander around the office as if they're taking the lunch order. What do you think we need? A little salt, a little sugar, a little spice. Oh, no. Won't be seen without this. Must have this in the background. That's how those things get written. And yet once those things migrate down to HR, that stuff is carved and etched into stone. And my gosh, you don't match the magical checkbox list, and conversation doesn't really happen with the decision maker. I want you to begin to change all that in your job search simply by taking slight little measured risk of reaching out to the decision maker. But you have to remember, even at that outreach, may seem like it's about you, but it's really not about you. It's a date, and you can't forget that piece of it. So as we begin to think about the outreach process and the influence process for the decision maker, I am definitely going to give you lots of directions, opinion, everything else, but don't let somebody else think for yourself. We have to absorb all the information. You're going to have to see what aligns with your chart forward, and then utilize what's valuable to you, what aligns with what makes sense for you. You have to be essentially the master of your own domain. So outreach and messaging during the pandemic, that's a little bit more difficult. Many people not answering their phones. Gosh, is there a plus side to that? If they're not answering their phone, guess what you're very likely to get? Voicemail. And you may go, well, what's the point, John? I'm glad you asked. We're going to talk about the concept of a multi-tiered marketing approach. Maybe using email, using voicemail. Maybe I capture them directly live in conversation. Oh, I know you're scared about that. Doesn't happen very often. Most times it goes to voicemail. The beauty of a voicemail, especially during a pandemic time where someone's not really typically answering their phones, they may be going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, is that when they play those voicemails back, if you understand how to actually leave an effective voicemail, I'll cover that today, my gosh, that is their chance to hear your passion about why you're so head over heels for this company, for this potential team, for the opportunity, for the excitement of the value you can potentially bring. Those are things that would be very, very exciting to potentially hear. But you have to get past the, hey, I'm looking for work, blah, 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 because really nobody cares about that. This is about how you start your engagement engines, which absolutely have to be scripted. Just because they're scripted, by the way, does not mean you're not being genuine. It just means you've thought in advance what you're going to say. We'll talk about a lot of directions today, as I do in a lot of the lectures. When you start to pursue all the things I suggest, your time is going to evaporate very quickly. There are more important things for you to do in your job search workday than you possibly have time for. This particular phrase right here Is this the most effective use of my time at this moment? This is meant to be a test phrase for yourself. Every time you feel pulled in multiple directions, what activity gets you closer to the next interview, a potential second interview, third interview, offer, whatever it might be? This is kind of a bellwether to kind of keep us focused on the right thing. And yes, it is a good use of our time if we do it the right way. Now, if you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, a resume and LinkedIn guru as well. If your resume and your LinkedIn need quite the tune-up, gosh, I think you know where to find me. Packages are over under my services tab on selfrecruiter.com. A little bit more about my background. You should understand everybody's background that is teaching you, so you also understand how to parse and value what they're teaching you, which parts I might adhere to and use, and which parts I might let fall by the wayside. 7 or 8 years in outside recruitment. That is 3 different disciplines on a desk as a traditional headhunter. 2 of those as national market. Simply means never met anybody. Every single thing over the phone. Lots of placements. All happens over the phone. All happens in conversation. Then did a local market, Manhattan. Suddenly I had to meet everybody. That dynamic does change when you have to get in front of people. Not too many folks in front of people today with the pandemic, but you know that will return as well. Of my entire time in recruiting, I spent 3.5 years of that entire time as the national trainer. So we had a 100 office recruiting system. And as each office would hire potential recruiters, they'd come into my 90-day program to teach them how hiring really works, which is not how people really think it works. If it worked that way, we wouldn't necessarily need this type of lecture. It works very, very differently. People choose on emotion and surface things, which are controllable. So we have to think about those things. They pick on chemistry and confidence in you. So we have to work on those things. But you have to get past the gatekeepers, the people that are trying to rule you out. Let's go back to HR for a second. Let's be clear. HR's mission in life is to rule you out. And it's not because they're bad people. Certainly not. If 1,000, 2,000 resumes are being sent in, and that's for any decent job, the only possible way you ever get to the right one is to pick up every single resume and go, what's wrong with this one? What's wrong with this one? Oh, no, I like this one. Good step. What's wrong with this one? What's wrong with this one? And yet they're judging you without really having the background in your field, which can be a problem. Of course, ended up being VP over all 100 offices before I stepped out to do what I do now for the last 10 years, which is work directly with clients, really helping them reinvent their career story, elevate their brand, and giving lectures for quite a number of organizations around New York City and beyond. You know, your job search is a sales process. We don't like to really I'll just go after the job. I'll just apply. I'll get it. It doesn't really work that way because everybody is hitting that darn button. Almost never says apply. Almost says submit, all capital letters until we're so submissive. It's like a Friday night. Wait for that phone to ring. It's going to ring. It's going to ring. Telemarketer when it does. Going to leave us in an unhappy place, whether it's the telemarketer or really not having the right focus for our outreach, our messaging, getting to the decision maker. You know, important projects. You certainly worked on important projects in your work life. Think about all the effort that went into those projects, all the stress, everything that surrounded those projects. Your job search is the most important project you have to work on. The same level of intensity and focus and energy that went into that, stress levels, everything has to go into the problem solving for your job search because it's a sales process. Now, I'm a big believer in rather than sitting on the internet looking at job postings, which I cover in Supercharging Your Job Search. You know, to me, that activity of sitting on the internet looking at those postings, that's what most people do as their job search. I personally consider that pure tragedy. You are wasting 50% of your available resources. The only resource you have as a job seeker is your time. And yet about 50% of all jobs that are posted are not real in the first place. Oh yeah, maybe someday they might like to hire something like that. But you know, those advertising spots, those job posting spots, those are ad spots. And you have to understand the way they're sold. Those are sold up to 1 year in advance. Only way you get a good deal is, what could I use this next year? Take that number to your sales rep. You do a little horse trading and back and forth and sign that contract. Those are use them or lose them in 12 months. No idea 6 months or up to a year ago what they were going to hire today. Pretty soon they start filling in with things they would like to hire when they find the right one at some point when they're ready to expand. not really ready to hire today. That's about half the jobs. You don't know which half are the ones they're ready to hire for and which are the other half. So do check out the Supercharging Your Job Search. To kind of short circuit and give you a better answer, I think the answer from my view is to reverse the entire job search process. Why don't we simply start with 30 companies statistically perfect to hire you? And I teach you how to pull that list right in the LinkedIn lecture. Of course, that's right on my homepage, selfrecruiter.com, but halfway down the page, you can see me, you see the slides, and really use it as a start and stop tutorial. But I teach you how to build that list 2 different ways of 30 companies that would be statistically perfect to hire you. If you've ever worked with a good recruiter or met a good recruiter, and I know there's a lot in the industry that certainly give the industry a bad name, but the good ones are very good. That's 2, 3, 4% of them. If you met with a good recruiter, be it over the phone or in person or Zoom or whatever it might be, and they really did like you, really did want to work with you, the first thing after that communication ends, they're going to do is the recruiter is going to build a list of 30 companies statistically perfect to hire you. Same technique I'll teach you here today. Hopefully I'll get to it today. It's in my LinkedIn lecture for sure. But you build this list and then you stack rank that list. So whatever's most valuable to you is, place your efforts on top. And now every one of those companies would hire you if they have an opening. That's the only real unknown. Good recruiter, by the way, does not go and look at those companies' websites to see if they have an ad. Are they advertising for you? They don't go that route. It doesn't make sense because half the job postings are not real. So they simply pick up the phone and call 30 companies, 30 managers at 30 companies. And again, 2, 3, or 4 out of the 30, I need a person just like this. Oh, you do? Tell me about your need. Tell me about the problem. Tell me what's going on. I don't tell them about the homework, the magic trick, the statistical analysis that I position myself to get struck by lightning. But yes, position yourself to get struck by lightning. Things do get easier. So in creating a real job search plan, just to begin to touch on this outreach end of it, much more in the Supercharging Your Job Search lecture, I'm going to select these organizations or companies. I can follow the LinkedIn lecture, build that statistically perfect list. Then you have to have a little bit of suspension of disbelief. Same thing as we have to empower when we sit down to watch a movie or a television show. Because I'm sure your brain says it's not possible. It's not possible. But if it was, okay, suspension. If it was possible, how do you work backward, align the sun, the moon, the stars to find out and discover the steps? So yeah, I have to do a little brainstorming. It's problem solving again. I have to discover the decision makers. We'll show you how to do that here again today. Also, it's in my LinkedIn lecture. You can't miss that there. Their title, of course, decision makers. Their job is to object to you. When they object to you, you should be excited. John, you don't have this background. Fantastic. No, I don't show them that, but inside, that's what I'm going. You know why? Because I understand they would not waste oxygen. Their job, they probably were sitting before our conversation going, oh, nice background, but I'm not quite sure. I'm going to have to ask them this. That's the objection. So the objection is really just a platform, a soapbox. Is your story ready? Are you ready to interview? Are you ready to sell and persuade them? Are you really ready to teach them how to select you? And if you're not really ready for that level, let's watch my interview intervention lecture, which will teach you a little bit more about getting ready to sell to them. It's not their job to pick you. It's your job to teach them how to pick you. So I'm going to overcome the objections, get the meeting, or be it a Zoom or whatever style meeting it may be these days. I'm going to dazzle them and either get the job or get them to create the job. That's the basic piece. But I have to go back and understand really it's part of a sales process. Now, you've probably seen a sales funnel before. There's nothing too transformative about this funnel, but in terms of job search, we do really want to think about it. Let me just bring this center stage here so it's a little bit larger while we talk about it here. I'll come right back in a minute. So you have to have much more activity at the top. Maybe I can come in tiny. Maybe how does that work? Maybe better. I can get a little bit of me. So I come in here at the top of the funnel. That's where all of the activity, as much outreach as possible. This is where you begin to build the awareness. And from that, a few of those people trickle down and interest is created. And from that, maybe there's a few below that. There's a few that might consider and think and see the value. And from that, hopefully multiple offers, but drilling down to at least an offer. This is the typical, sales plan essentially for job search. But job search is a sales process. So I have to just go through the steps. The steps to me should almost give you a comfort level, because it's so stressful in job search. I mean, my bills are due, this is due, all this pressure. I'm feeling worth less than I was before because I'm not employed and I have to explain all that. And people are going to accuse me of not being employed or being defective. They're testing, they're objecting. I have to overcome it. So yeah, I'm going to open the company. I'm going to choose the companies. That's the first thing. Then I'm going to open 25 to 30 individuals' LinkedIn profiles. Now I'm going to go in, I'm going to reverse search them, lengthy display of how to do that right in the LinkedIn section. We're going to cover a little bit of that today as well. But then I simply am going to pick these people based on where I imagine or see the job. I see it, imagine it here. And I'm going to pick people up the food chain. Don't be shy. Up, down, all the way to admin level. Very strategic reasoning, left to right. I'm going to open their profiles, ask them to connect. I'm going to email 3, 4, or 5 of those people. And I've already opened and asked to connect to everyone. Key is don't wait for the answer. Answer is completely irrelevant. Don't wait for the answer. It doesn't matter. It's a sales process. Now I pick 3, 4, or 5 individuals that I've already asked to connect, didn't wait. And now I email each one of them as if they're the only person in the world. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill. I just had to reach out and introduce myself to you. I'm so excited by what we'll get back to the script a little bit later on. All the pieces of the script are coming up. So I email these decision makers. This is beginning to influence these people. These 3, 4, 5 people I select are people that I think would likely be involved in the decision process or the conversation, at least for a person like me. In that group, you're very, very likely to have the decision maker, which is a pretty nice thing. Let me grab a little tissue here. Sorry. But even if you're a little bit off and you don't quite have the decision maker in your 3, 4, or 5, they all know the decision maker. All you have to do is be valuable to them, and they will refer you on. I think you need to speak with Jack Smith. Fantastic. Could you dial Jack in? All things are possible if you think of them, not possible if you do not think of them. Book a meeting, get an interview, sell. That's your whole job. So let's go back to the sales funnel for a second, because I told you part of the plan, but I didn't give you part of the numbers. If you would like choice in your job search, and choice means you have to get to a point of getting multiple offers. Multiple interviews is not choice. Multiple offers is choice. So if you want to achieve getting multiple offers at the same time, that means you have to manage and juggle approaching 10 companies simultaneously. So that's 25 to 30 opens, 3, 4, ask them all to connect. I've got to pick 3, 4, 5 at each one, send them my basic message, telling them why I think they're the best thing since sliced bread and why I could be valuable to creating that bread in the future for them. Book a meeting and juggle. Lots of follow-up messaging and calls involved in all that, juggling 10 at once. And if you do it effectively, you should be generating 1 brand new, never interviewed at this company before interview per week. Oh, you may have second interviews with that company, third interviews. Yes, those are all wonderful. But you have to have fresh blood in your job search all the time. So we're after creating 1 new, brand new interview beginning each week. Now, let's give you a little bit more detail, even though I walked you through it. So these 25 to 30 individuals, yes, up, down, left, right. What it really is a nice, healthy mix. Now we have some larger type. Maybe I'll come back a little larger. So we have a nice, healthy mix of really all the people that would normally surround me in my work life. People that I might have contact with on a daily basis. These are all people you can influence. By selecting these individuals, opening on LinkedIn and asking to connect, you've triggered a marketing event. This is the beginnings of outreach to the decision maker. I have to warm up the audience around the decision maker simply by opening their profiles, asking them to connect. And now I've really gotten behind the firewall of the company with my picture, with my nice headline about why I could be so valuable to them, and basic message to them that has to communicate a few basic things. I have to communicate that they don't know me, I'm professionally appropriate. Maybe include a little bit of a stroke to the ego would be very, very, very important. That simple message is as clear as I like to connect with other professionals in our niche or niche, depending how we like to say that. And of course, I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. It says you don't know me, professionally appropriate, little gentle stroke to the ego. By the way, out of that, you probably get 10, 12 acceptances pretty quickly. Oh, I know you want them all. It is not about that. This is putting a worm on the hook, tossing it out into the pond, and being patient enough to let it wiggle around until somebody clicks on it or bites it. You get the idea. So this is to draw the attention. There's a nice message up on screen that you can think about. By the way, that's a message you write one time ever and copy and paste forevermore. So next part of it is I've already asked to connect. I sent that nice message. Now I'm going to select those 3, 4, 5 individuals. Who do I think would be involved? By the way, if you are only brave enough to choose one person to outreach to, I really hope you like your heart being tossed against the rocks over and over. Statistically, they're not going to respond to you. You're going to get your heart broken pretty quickly, and you will lose your confidence and ability to outreach to others because you won't be able to do it. It takes some fortitude. But if you reach out to 3 to 5 people, always trying for the 5 because that increases my numbers, statistically, you begin to change things. Now, from all of this, I'm beginning to build knowledge, which is equity in my career, equity in my job search, both for this time and next time. So I need to capture that information because it's a sales process. How could you work through the process? What comes next? What else could I do? How can you do any of that without capturing it? All these forms, by the way, you can download them for free right on my website, selfrecruiter.com, right under the advice tab, which is my blog, and it's under the job search management system. Whole thing's there, all the forms are there. You begin to capture it all. It begins to guide you through what to do next. What else could I do? Small changes change perception, and small changes also in your script will change everything. So you have to begin to speak about yourself in a very, very different way. Let's also not forget the world has changed. If you've not worked remotely before, you're going to have to beef up your background in the way you talk about things. Maybe I don't have to read everything coming up on screen here, but maybe you've done some of these things here. You've worked with certain vendors or managers, team members, whatever might be off-site. That could be one of the ways to demonstrate ability off-site. Of course, once you have any sort of a video meeting, that's another way to demonstrate how well you can work remotely, simply by how you engage and handle that conversation. How much ease was there? Of course, maybe I've been a speaker. Maybe there's webinars or conference calls, or maybe I've presented at some conference. All sorts of ways that also indicate you can work remotely off-site, those kinds of things, even though it's not literally the same. Now, this is reaching out to the decision maker. So just who is it? Who is it that makes these decisions? Because you know what? I need to influence them, and not just the decider. Yes, the decider is very important, but rarely do they make that decision in a vacuum, alone. So you can see a deeper talk on this over on the LinkedIn side, but we're going to run you through this. How do I get to virtually anybody that I'm looking for? And yes, we're looking for people that surround the boss. Did you notice it says boss, boss's boss, boss's boss's boss, up the food chain? I know it can be very scary, even calling any of these people or emailing any of these people, but you know what? I'd prefer to start 2 levels above the boss, 2 levels above the actual decider. By the way, further up the food chain you go, they're not afraid of you. They think of you as a strategic asset. And so if you understand the whole date feel, and it has to be about them, and you present the value of your strategic asset, right away they connect the dots right down the food chain as to who they need to introduce you to. And you always get the interview when you get introduced down the food chain. But I would certainly be going after 3 to 5 individuals all at the same time to increase my odds. But I've got to get to these deciders. Who the heck are these deciders? Well, I think you understand your field probably even better than I understand your field. So think about whatever kind of sector of the organization you might be in. Not brain surgery to figure out the reporting structure and who's the boss, boss's boss, boss's boss's boss. Apply a little of that thought. Begin to fill in your forms, absorb the information, realize who you're missing, go back and get the information. Now, other ways to get to the deciders. There's a few ways to get to the deciders. One of them is name mentions in all sorts of topical information about the industry. Could be trade magazines, could be books, articles, whatever it might be, websites, company press releases, all sorts of things. that could contain the mention of someone's name. Oh my gosh, dear Jack, I had to reach out. I saw your name mentioned in such and such. They know exactly what you're doing, by the way, but they're human beings. They can't resist it. And it gives you an opening to start up a conversation. So, I mean, the name mentions, that's a really great one to use. And when you understand how to use it the right way, stroke the ego. When you get on the phone with someone and you, let's say you don't get what you might have been after at first, there has to be some secondary target. You're either going to get or not get whatever goal you went into this outreach for. Probably you'd like to meet with them and talk with them. But you know what? Maybe they just hired. Maybe you actually do break through and you're like so proud. I got them on the phone and, oh my gosh, Jack, I wish I'd talked to you last month. We just filled our last spot. Okay, what can I do in the moment? Why don't you do what's unexpected? Why don't you congratulate them? I'm sure you're not happy that they've hired and they didn't hire you, but congratulations, Jack. That's so exciting to have your team filled. And then set some expectations that person may not meet so they can come back to you. By the way, I it's always wonderful to have your team filled. Jack, I have to say, if they somehow don't meet your expectations or don't deliver, I certainly hope they do. I remain very interested. Don't hesitate to reach back out to me at any time. First off, keep the door open. That's part of it. Secondly, I have to go after referrals from those folks. They probably really like you, even though they chose someone before you. They didn't get a chance to meet with you. So, put them in your shoes, have them look out of your eyes. Jack, with your background and position within the industry, you must hear things. Where would you look for an opportunity if you had my background? Or Jack, if you had my background, what am I missing? What would you look at as a next step? Which companies? Okay, so referrals. By the way, if they give you a name, my gosh, I hope you ask for the phone number, and you have to remove the permission layer. If you ask permission, can you give me their phone number? Oh, I don't think I should. Now, I would just call the main number. Don't trigger permission layer. Simply ask for what you'd like. Oh, I think you should talk to Jack Smith. What's Jack's phone number? And once they give you Jack's phone number, what's Jack's email? What else would benefit you? Learn to have some steel and just ask it without the permission layer. And you'll be very quickly surprised as you are direct outreaching and networking through these decision makers, which is not only about booking a potential meeting, but about extracting information. Boy, if you're brave enough to ask a lot of these questions, they'll just tell you. Jack, who's your toughest competitor? Or who do you see as your toughest competitor? I mean, you better have an idea who their toughest competitor is before you picked up that phone. But, who do you see as the toughest competitor? Oh, what now? Why do you see it that way? Perspective. That could also help you, whatever they say, approach the competitor. So yes, we're there to uncover things. So referrals are very rich. Most of the time, though, we're going to use LinkedIn, and we're going to understand the typical org chart, mix it with a little bit of our own knowledge, reverse search this company. Very, very important. Let me get a little sip of water here. On LinkedIn, which we're going to show you next here. And we begin to select these individuals for outreach. We're going to get to the script as well. So top of any page on LinkedIn is a unified search box. Doesn't matter which one you start with, it's all the same. I go to this unified search box, and if I wanted to discover, say, people at Informatica, that's a big database middleware company, used to be one of my cash cows as a recruiter years ago. I start to type Informatica, but they start to give me this drop-down list. Oh, temptation. Don't click on the drop-down list. That's a trip down the rabbit hole. Simply type what you'd like and hit enter, and you get this nice secondary sorting process here. Because, if I'm here, I'm really looking for the people that work for Informatica, but as long as I'm here, I bet you there must be other companies that are not somehow on my radar that I need to reach out to. So I'm always looking for other companies. So, hidden right under the More tab. I go, there's companies. Show me the companies. What do we got? 34,000 companies. What's going on here? Yes, everything you see on screen says Informatica. A little bit down the page, once Informatica's run out after a couple dozen, who are the rest of these 34,000? I can tell you. This used to be one of my fields. Everybody down on this list is a system integrator. They either sell or install Informatica software. If I am statistically right to work for Informatica, I'm very likely statistically right to work for a great number of these other companies on the list. This is a method right here. One of the methods, I teach another one in the LinkedIn profile. This is a method right here to build a statistically perfect list. But of course, I'm really looking for people ultimately. If I'm after Informatica, then I have to go back. No, show me the people. What do I get? Oh, 2.5 million. I can't read that many. It's not, I'm going to have to think here. Should also mention that I only use the free version of LinkedIn. If you'd like to use the paid version, you should. But everything I teach you, you can do on the free version. It's problem solving. It's brainstorming. I have to put my brain to work. So let me think here. Maybe I don't need, I don't need worldwide. So let's go ones just in the US. And I don't need someone that worked for Informatica 3 years ago. I need them working there currently. So let's check both of those off. Even on the free version, what do I get? Oh, 1,615 results. We're getting better. Can't look at 1,600 either. That's not going to work. I have to think about this. Who would hire me? You know what? I think it's a VP. I think it's a VP that's going to hire me. Oh, look at that VP, simple search. Really in the US, really in Informatica. This is how we discover who we're going to reach out to that is a decision maker. What do I get here, by the way? 75. Oh, 75. A lot of chiefs in that company. Maybe it's a director. Director still in the US, still Informatica. What do we get? 228. I'm going the wrong direction. I know what it is. You know why? Because it's problem solving and brainstorming. That's why you're here. So you have to think through it and figure out, what am I missing? You know what it is? It's a sales director. That's what I need. Actually, right down in New York City. I don't just need all in New York. I need New York City, sales director, currently working for Informatica. What do I get? Oh, 3. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. But you heard John say 3 to 5. Get closer to 5, we increase our odds. That could help us. So maybe if I go back, maybe there's a sales VP, not just a sales director. Need a little more liquid. All right, so sales VP, really down in New York City, really in current working for Informatica. What do I get? 2 more. Now I do have 5. Phenomenal. Now I've got the 5 that I'm after. Someone in here is probably the decision maker. They're all great influencers, and I want to really open as to connect. By the way, these 3 to 5 would have been part of the overall 25 to 30 that I would pick. I'm really going to start by opening up everybody's profile that I think is somewhere around me, up, down, left, right. And out of that, I then begin to pick these, narrow down to these folks that make sense. Now, I'd like to connect with folks, but sometimes I get frustrated with this darn send in-mail. Please understand what in-mail is, which is spam. The literal definition of spam, it is paid email. Please do not send it. You may not think it's spam, but I guarantee you high-value hiring targets that get a lot of communications, recruiters, HR folks, my inbox is clogged with well over 1,000 unopened messages of mostly spam nonsense inside. So I want to connect with them. Understand there's always a way. Their business model is connecting. If I just load at Nick's profile, well, it's still going to frustrate me with the send in mail. But if I click the ... little drop down menu, and they've just hidden it over here behind the plant, oh, they'll never look over there. There it is. And I connect with them. Oh, well, look, there's that message you write one time ever. Copy and paste forevermore. So back to the idea of the sales process. I'm going to connect with people. I begin to warm up that whole audience. That's a phenomenal thing, by the way. Don't be taken aback because only 10, 12, 13 of these people may connect with you quickly. Well, some of them may not connect with you until they meet you. Every one of them is going to be looking at you, which is really what you're after, how you're going to get the audience warmed up. Of course, capture that data, because it really doesn't make a lot of sense to go through all the things we have to do in job search and not build some equity. But then we have to get to the actual, what does the message sound like? Hi, this is John. I'd like you to hire me. Let's hope not, because that's not a very effective message. What you usually get is, how'd you get my number? Take me off your list. Never call me again. Security. How'd this guy get through to me? My gatekeeper didn't work so well. It's a sales process. What I recommend in outreach is a combination approach, kind of a 1-2 punch of a marketing campaign. So all outreach, all messaging, all looking for a job is really marketing yourself. If I think of it that way and go, well, I'll just follow the steps. Very stressful, but I'll just follow the steps. Okay. What I'd love to do is the 1-2 combination, where I'm going to approach them by email, but I'm also going to approach them by phone, which could be a live conversation. Oh, please no, please no. Or it could go into voicemail. Oh, I hope so. I hope so. Both have advantages and disadvantages. So if I'm going to do all of that in a coordinated marketing campaign, the first thing I'm going to do is write my message. We're still going to get to the message, but I write my message. It's ready to go. I could send it, but I don't send it. It's open. I just don't send it. Now I pick up the phone. Pick up the phone, reach out and dial, go out to the individual. By the way, if it goes to their voicemail, I leave them the voicemail. The secret to voicemail is simply don't speak to the machine. I don't know why it goes beep. Oh, hi, Jack. Blah, blah, blah. What's your voice doing way up there? Talk to them as if they're hanging on every word, probably about to interrupt you because they're so interested, but they actually won't because it's a voicemail. Cover that when I show you the message. I'll let you hear it as a voicemail and we'll see it as text. It's almost the same message. And yet you have to make it personal, intimate, as if you're almost whispering right into their ears. So if I didn't mess up my voicemail, now I click send on my email. If you are doing enough activity, if your job search has any life in it, you're going to be pulled in so many directions that eventually you'll leave a bad voicemail. You'll make a mistake. Something will go wrong, or you're not doing enough. You don't have enough activity that will arrive at multiple offers. So I'm going to sit here and think about, well, how do I manage all this and not mess it up? Well, part of it is having a good script. Part of it is using our soft skills. That's our emotional intelligence quotient to really engage people. Most important out of everything here, and it's all important, is really the last two, the friendliness and optimism. I'm a Sagittarius. That means I'm the ultimate optimist that exists. The sun will come up tomorrow, even if it's a nuclear holocaust. I sure hope it isn't. But yeah, optimist. At the same time, because I've been a recruiter, I've also trained my brain to contain the worst pessimist you've ever met. In fact, that person's job is to disbelieve every single word that flows in through John's ears. I don't let that show. But that's a very, very important filter and voice to have in your brain, especially during the interview process. Check out that interview intervention lecture. So I have to stay optimistic, friendly, engaging. It's a date. It's about them. Really, all my communications become part of potential outreach. I've had people secure their interview simply by wishing a manager happy birthday on Facebook. Now, that really requires some peeling back. How did that happen? Person that had sent in directly to the decision maker. Also, it tells you they were connected on Facebook. Scary, scary. Before they work for this person. Yeah, I'm talking about one of my clients that does use Facebook, which I don't recommend for most folks, but they use it for their career. Maybe that's right for, 2-3% of the people that have a very high ability to self-edit. Oh, can't say anything fun. This is for work or influencing work. But they were frustrated because they didn't hear back from the decision maker. And suddenly I got a call going, oh, it's her birthday. She popped up on Facebook. And they'd previously interviewed with this person, so they had a past relationship, and they're very observant. And they noticed in that past interview that this person also kept a Facebook tab open on their work computer. Careful when you're interviewing people, they observe everything. And so they called me and said, oh my gosh, it's their birthday today on Facebook. I'm like, fantastic. You know how we're going to get the interview? We're just going to wish them happy birthday. That's it. Do you think they forgot that message you sent out to them? I don't think so. This is a gentle, figurative little nudge that's a date all about them. And of course, they responded back publicly. Sometimes people need a little education on how those things work. Responded back publicly going, oh, thank you so much. Oh, and I know I owe you a message. My current boss wasn't looking. My client was thinking. So think about all your interactions on any channel, any device could be part of this outreach. It's not simply just the phone call, the email. There might be other avenues as well, and you have to be creative. In terms of what you're going to say or present about yourself, you have to think about your brand and all those things that make you the standout or potential standout, all the things that really separate you from other people. Be sure to check out my other lectures, which will fill in the gaps on a lot of this. This is part of how you begin to take control of the discussion, how you begin to place yourself in some sort of a ranking among the competitors and really guide and control that person that you're after, beginning steps of teaching them how to select you. Now, in this outreach, be it casual, direct, indirect, doesn't really matter. There's lots of different avenues. You have to create interest. And the interest is about them before it's ever about you, because it's a date. Not dating is usually when I mention dating in my in-person lectures, there's groans across the audience because we all know what's involved there. And I'll sit and go, but okay, well, think about the whole dating process and what's involved and all the stress and everybody really pretending to be somebody they're not, or maybe the best version of themselves that they're not typically that day. But have you ever gone out on a date with Mr. Me, where the whole time it's me, 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 me? Going to be a second date with Mr. Me? I don't really think so. Not unless we're going to the Four Seasons and I need to eat there or something. Not going to happen. So don't lose sight of the date piece and understand that every piece of communication, be it social, posts, whatever it might be, but a lot of times, if you're thinking like a date, you have to deliver something to them. So I might have included an article, a book, event, something that could be valuable to them, a few words of commentary. Oh, I saw this and thought it might be interesting, blah, blah, blah. So you have to think about how you're going to generate the interest, which is what's going on with the company. What could I share with them that could be valuable? Or is there something going on in the industry that I could share and comment in and then attach my value to? The biggest part of doing the outreach is avoiding a one-off. In a typical applying for jobs, we apply for the job and then we sit home disappointed going, it's been 4 weeks. I haven't heard anything. You're waiting for some random HR person to call you back? Okay, let's take control. So I want you to avoid that kind of one-off situation where you've just done one thing and sitting. If you created this list of companies and you think those are the right companies, then your mission in life has to be to keep after those people that you're going after at that company. That's the 3 to 5 people. And I have to keep after them as many times as is required until they either end up in the conversation with me or they call me to tell me to quit calling. Now, I sure hope they don't do that. But my gosh, if they picked up the phone or I answered the phone, suddenly it's like, oh, is this John Crant? Could you quit calling me? You better believe I will fall on my sword and go, oh, Jack, I'm so sorry. Absolutely. But, as long as I have you, the reason I reached out, I just had to introduce myself to you. You don't think I'm going to not sell to them just because they told me not to call them. Believe me, that's an objection, and they'd like to see how you overcome it, to see if you get thrown off. So there's a lot of opportunities, as you see up on screen here, to think about different channels to push the relationship forward or open up a communication channel that stays open. Just don't forget it's a date, and you've got to think it through and influence all the people around them. That's a big help. Let's look at a few different messages. Then we're going to construct a message or let's let you hear a message I might recommend. So look at this message here. And I'm going to bring this just a little bit bigger. I'll go smaller so we can focus in on this. I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Jack Smith. I'm an expert at A, B, and C. I'm looking for a new opportunity. I'd be a valuable asset to your company. I'd like to meet with you. Sounds pretty good. Positive, upbeat. At least I was in delivery. But you have to understand as you construct these, who is this message about? I'm an expert. I'm looking, valuable asset. I'd like. Well, who really cares? That is not interesting to me. You're interrupting my day, and you didn't approach me as a date. You've got to sweet talk me, my company, build that interest. Also, at the same time, I have to be able to visualize what you do that's valuable to me if I'm going to consider hiring you. Let's take a look at another message here. Oh, gosh, what I do is very interesting. You know what architects are good at? Architecture. You know what they're not very good at? Running their business. That's what I do. I've run the back end for several architectural firms now. In fact, I'm looking for a new opportunity right now. Very, very different approach. Now, let's again analyze this one. Oh, what I do is very interesting. It's commentary, but your job is to sell and position and persuade. So that has to be there. Your job is not to let them evaluate you. Your job is to teach them. You know what architects are very good at? Architecture, running their business. That's what I do for several firms. Now etched in my brain, without you really giving me any detail of how you ran that business, is exactly what you've done. All the values in my head with really none of the minutia, none of the detail, none of the distraction. So let's take a look at one more. Oh, it gets longer and longer here. I just had to reach out and introduce myself to you. I'm so excited by what I see going on at XYZ Company. Yes, this is a format I typically do like. Congrats, by the way, on that very nice feature I read in the Wall Street Journal. You know, my background includes handling a very similar launch as I'd read about in the article, handling all those issues that I'm guessing you might be experiencing with this launch. That's the setup, essentially. Why you potentially could be valuable to them, dangling the carrot, and then you have to go for the jugular. I'd love to come in and meet with you. Very direct. Would you consider meeting with me? No, I wouldn't. I'd love to come in and meet with you. And then wiggle that carrot a little bit more, where I can share how we overcame launch issues. And then right for the jugular. I have an opening on my calendar. Your words are very, very important. Opening on my calendar on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Might that work for your schedule, Jim? The might that work for your schedule, Jim, is a very gentle handoff so they feel in control. But I think you know who's in control here. Let's break down this text and take a closer look here. So if we look at it and begin to think about how we've stroked the ego, how we positioned and approached the company as a date, how we attached our value, how we made it all about things that could be valuable to them, and then we go right for the jugular of booking the meeting. It's also a demonstration of how effective you will be when you're working there and have to get things done. And yet we're doing it with very gentle hand, but something that's much, much more effective. You know, small changes change perception. I definitely want to talk today a little bit about the fact that as you do this outreach, you know what? We're going to be getting, and this is a little bit of a repeat. We're extra slide in here. Sorry about that. As we're doing this outreach, you're often going to be stopped by a gatekeeper. I call into Jack's office and suddenly, hi, this is Jack Smith's office. I'm like, oh, I got a screener. Someone that wants to pre-screen me here. Let's come a little larger here. They want to screen me out. They want to know if I'm valuable enough to talk with Jack. You know what? Have you never called a friend of yours inside of another company? When you call the friend of yours at some other company, do you have any doubt that you're going to speak to your friend? What would happen if someone tried to stop you or gatekeep you from talking to your friend? You would get right through. And you'd get right through mostly by communicating that you belong. And that means I certainly only use their first name unless I need to use the full name one time, and then I switch to first name, which seems to communicate that, oh, you must know Jack or Jim or Jill. Well, I know a Jack, Jim, or Jill, but I don't know this Jack, Jim, or Jill. But yeah, you begin to communicate that you have a relationship simply by the style of approach. If the gatekeeper's a little harsh sometimes, I'm sorry, what's this about? Oh, it's just a personal call. Yeah, by the way, is Jack in the office, or should I call him on his cell phone? By the way, I don't have his cell phone. But that is a little bit of a distraction technique to, again, communicate, I belong, I have a relationship. I seem to know that, you know, Jack is out of the office and may have a cell phone with him. Don't we all have a cell phone with us? Oh, you know, and say, no, he's on it. You should call him. You know, I don't have the number in front of me. I'm sorry. Can you remind me, what's the number? I don't have the number in front of me. And I'd like you to remind me because I can't seem to remember, probably because it's not in my memory. There are lots of ways to get around gatekeepers. By the way, if you're not this effective at getting around a gatekeeper, they have to go to the bathroom at some point. They have to take a lunch break at some point. They come in at a certain hour. They go home at a certain hour. So you can give yourself license to call at other times to get around that gatekeeper if you need to. Your job, though, is to get through no matter what. You know, the one thing the gatekeeper will do to me sometimes, I'll get the gatekeeper and I'll go, oh, that's fine. You can just put me in the voicemail. And they'll go, oh, no, he doesn't have voicemail. Really? And I'll give them some sort of response. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how he manages life. Oh, I have to take down all the messages. Oh my gosh, that must be so hard on you. You know what? I'll give him a call back another time, but gosh, I appreciate your help. And then I'll call back and get around them at some point, or call after hours, or call 7:30 in the morning when I'm probably a little more likely to catch them without the gatekeeper. But you know what? Your job is to charm and disarm. You only deliver the information that is helpful to you, and you have to open doors. And that is mostly about having enough value in your message, not forgetting the date piece, attaching your piece to it. But let's get to the script. 30 seconds to live or die. And in this case, the dying sounds like, how'd you get my number? Take me off your list. Never call me again. Security. These are part of the job search management system you can download for free right on my website, right under the advice tab, which is the blog, and just look for job search management system. All the forms are there. Just going to take you through the script here. We're going to zoom in. You're not going to write it now, but all this text on the left side will guide you and remind you of what I'm telling you now. I do want to take you through the structure and so you understand how this works. Now, as I spent years teaching recruiters, I would start my class and I would start to teach them. And I go, well, this is how you do it. And I'd go, hey, good morning, Jack. It's John Crant. How are you this morning? And someone would go, isn't that what they all do? Yes. Usual, customer, expected. And, you know, in most of my lectures, I'm like, let's get over to the unusual, unconventional, unexpected. But in this case, really, these individuals we're trying to reach are like Pavlov and the dogs that he trained. You know, bring the tray of food out and ring the bell. And of course, the dog salivates at the food. Keep doing that for a while, ringing the bell each time. And eventually I come out and I ring the bell. Oh, I don't have the plate of food. And the dog still salivates. They're trained just like that darn dog. So good, bad, or ugly about this how are you doing today? I'm fine. How can I help you? I'll take it. I move right on with my message. So I'm going to greet them, see what the response is. By the way, if it's a bad response, I cannot pretend I didn't hear it. Hey, good morning, Jack. It's John Crant. How are you this morning? I'm terrible. Couple secrets there. First off, you heard me say my full name. You must say your full name. This person does not know you. You need to clearly say your full name so their brain is not off on some spiral trying to identify your voice. They go, oh, I don't know John Crant, and they begin to listen right away. I ask them how they're doing. They go, terrible. I have to acknowledge it. You see it right on the form there. Well, Jack, let's see if we can change that. And I get right to the point of why I'm so excited by this company and why I could be valuable to them. You know, the reason I had to reach out to you is I'm so excited by what I see going on at XYZ. I saw the Wall Street Journal article on your new such and such launch. I'm going to acknowledge, I'm going to tell them why I'm calling. By the way, if you went to one of those schools, there's only about this many. Let's not fool ourselves with this laundry list of, oh, this is a good school. Lots of good schools. One of these schools the doors will fly off the hinges for you. If you went to one of those, please do mention it. I see them fly off the hinges with my clients, and it's pretty amazing. If you didn't go to one of those schools, leave it alone for now. That's not the sell piece. 2 or 3 things, key accomplishments, something that you think would make them jump out of their chair, hopefully relate it to whatever is you shared about them. Maybe it's something that could help that effort. Then we simply close, which is a scary sales term, simply meaning ask for what you'd like and ask for agreement to it. If you don't ask for agreement to it, you're not closing. So you have to ask for the date. I'd love to meet with you. I have an opening Tuesday at 10 a.m. Might that work for a brief meeting? There I asked for the agreement. Think about this. Keep it natural. Another trick here in how you approach writing this is you cannot write it in a grammatically perfect fashion. Human beings don't speak that way. Do write it in the voice you naturally speak. Otherwise, when you try to read something you wrote perfectly, you'll sound like a canned ham, and that doesn't really work as well. Now, another approach as you're networking with these people and you're direct outreaching is you can get an agreement to call them back, which may sound like, can I call you back and bother you? No. So maybe it's as simple as floating something like this. You know, gosh, Jack, from time to time, I run into some interesting situation. This would be after you either get or don't get whatever goal that you're after. I also segued over and got or didn't get a referral or 2 I was after, like we mentioned earlier. I put them in my shoes, looking out of my eyes, and asked for their advice as to where I should look next. And then at the very end, if I'm really audacious and brave, I can ask them for an agreement for a relationship. Something as simple as, I've had all that nice discussion with you. And I go, you know, Jack, from time to time, I run into something, you know, some interesting situation. It's your job to spin it so it's interesting, even though there's no detail when speaking with others in the industry. Do you realize these managers that you're reaching out to live in their own bubble where they feel cut off from their own industry? Oh, they may know what's going on inside their company, but they're cut off from the others many times. So you are a tremendous resource. This is a dangle of information that they can't resist, as long as it makes sense. You know, it would be helpful to me, right up on screen, it'd be helpful to me to run a scenario by you. Would it be okay if I gave you a call for your opinion or advice? Oh my gosh, what lovely words that stroke the ego. You know, if something interesting were to come up in a discussion. Oh, you like my opinion, my advice? You know, I at first I didn't really understand this as a recruiter. I'm like, really? Is that going to work? You know, you're probably statistically not going to call them back and ask them these things. Oh, I found a scenario I'd like to run by you. Well, typically probably not really going to happen. Will happen on occasion. But what you've done is you've built a tighter bond. They will remember you from this. And I hope there's a little bit of a follow-up message too. Again, a little bit of analysis here so you get why this works time to time. So I'm not going to bother you right there, time to time. Interesting situation, irresistible, really. Speaking with others in the industry, which they don't get to do often enough, not really, not with inside information. Or it could be helpful. You know, we don't get enough brownie points in life. If you choose the right verbiage, people would like to get the brownie points. This could be valuable to them, and yet could be helpful to you. It's a win-win. Of course, ending on the your opinion, your advice. Other thing to remember is don't burn out your assets. I'm not going to call these people all the time once I've had my initial discussions with them. Then they're going into my file as a resource that I tap someday. So I have to balance and manage that outreach. I have to build trust and relationship. Yes, I'm trying to look and get hired right now, but I'm building relationships for the next round, the next round, the next round, which could be next year or the year after when I'm changing jobs again. So your value the whole time. That's the whole point. That's what we have to focus on. Jack, I know with your background, position within the industry, you must hear things. Or Jack, if you had my background, what am I missing? What would you look at as your next step? Get their advice. Oftentimes we're far too focused on that. Oh, I have to get some interview. Well, yes, I'd love you to get the interview, but many companies won't be hiring. So what else could I get from this call? What else could I say? What could I leave them thinking? What are they thinking about me and my skills? And is there anything else that I could do? There's typically always one more thing that we can do. So as you run down these steps and begin to think about your direct outreach, know that it's a learning process. The first outreach, if you follow the recipe, will be somewhat masterful, even though it will be rough. And you become smooth over time from doing it. So the best thing you could do is force yourself to make 2 or 3 days worth of this direct outreach to get yourself started, and then understand this is like starting a rusty old lawnmower that's been sitting all winter and pulling that darn cord, and it keeps choking until the engine starts. Repeat, 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 repeat. All of these things, all of this outreach are figurative nudges. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. Think about how you're going to maximize. Whatever's been holding you back, you got to let it go. If there's something to fix, by the way, do it. But you have to get over whatever's been holding you back and go, there's a way to chart this forward. If I know my story, if I know why I'm valuable, if I'm ready to make my case and I approach them as if it's a date, the moment I've romanced them on the date piece, I have to sell my assets off. All the reasons why I'm the very best next hire. Take your first step or whatever your next step is, and let's repeat, 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 repeat. Really appreciate you guys joining in today. This will be, again, up on my YouTube channel and on Facebook for a while. Please do share it with your friends, like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that kind of fun stuff. Really do appreciate it. And if you need some help really lifting your brand, improving your resume, turning your LinkedIn profile into a 3-dimensional sales brochure about you, I think you know where to find me. selfrecruiter.com. All my packages are up under the services tab. Thank you guys for joining in. Tomorrow, join me for my noon lecture, which I do not have in my head. So without looking, I don't know what it is. But I'll be back 12 noon tomorrow for my Thursday lecture. Again, it will be on my Facebook and on my YouTube. And we'll see you then. Take care.